Welcome back, you sons of witches, to you, son of a witch, our weekly wizarding probe into, the wildest tales that you send us from the world of flash fiction. This week we've got two really juicy ones.
Yeah, some real nail biters.
Yeah.
Full of magic and mayhem and creatures, just amazing.
Exactly. And if you want to hear more of this awesomeness, be sure to, rate and follow you, son of a witch. Now, this time around, you've sent in two flash fiction stories, and like always, our mission is to crack them open, see what makes them tick, really get at those captivating elements and all that.
Right, because, well, there's always something fascinating about seeing familiar ideas, like classic stories and stuff, and seeing how authors can, twist them into something completely new and exciting by adding that magical element, right?
Couldn't have said it better myself. So, ready to fire up that wizarding probe?
Absolutely. Let's dive in.
All right. First up, we've got King Arthur and the Mage's Round Table. Now, this isn't your typical King Arthur story. We're not talking knights in shining armor here.
No jousting this time.
Nope. Instead, we've got King Arthur, but he's a powerful mage ruling over Camelot and his round table. Not just knights, but masters of different kinds of magic, like a whole council of sorcerers, right?
It's a pretty cool concept, right? I mean, you think about the round table, it's always been the symbol of unity and equality, but this story takes it in a whole new direction. Like, how does a society function when its core is made up of these different magical disciplines? How do they all fit together?
And that's exactly what grabbed the listener who sent this in. They were really intrigued by how this story, how it reimagines this classic tale with these magical elements. And, they were hoping for some of those aha moments you get when a story takes something familiar and twists it in a new way.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, it's always fun to see how an author can surprise you, even with a story you think you know.
Right. So let's step into this magical Camelot, shall we? And let's start by meeting some of these magical knights. We've got Bors, the master of earth magic.
Oh, yeah, he's described as being able to, like, summon vines from stone and stuff. Really powerful, really grounded. It's like he embodies the strength of the earth itself.
Exactly. And then there's Gawain. Now he's a bit more, a bit more fiery.
Literally, his sword is always wreathed in flames. He's like the offensive powerhouse of the group.
Yeah, the story really plays up that contrast, Bors all solid and steady, and then Gawain just bursting with fire and energy.
And it makes you wonder, how their personalities play into their magic, right? Does the magic shape them, or do they shape the magic?
That's a good question. It's like the chicken and the egg, but with magic. And then to round out our magical trio, we've got Lancelot, who's the master of ice magic.
Ah, Lancelot, always cool under pressure. Literally.
Right. The story describes ice, like blossoming on his sword. It's a nice image, right? This beautiful, delicate ice, but also deadly.
It's a good reminder that beauty and danger can go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to magic.
And then we have King Arthur himself. Now, he's not just some mage chucking fireballs around. His power is something different. He's got this ability. It's just described as unity and empathy.
Right. He's not the strongest mage in the group, not in the traditional sense, but he has this unique ability to draw all the different powers together. It's like he amplifies their magic and makes them work as one.
And it's that unity, that connection that makes them so strong. It's not about individual power, but about working together, right?
Which is a pretty powerful message, don't you think? Especially in a world like ours where, we often focus so much on individual achievement and all that.
Absolutely. But of course, no good story can exist without a little conflict, right? And that's where Mordred comes in.
Ugh, Mordred. The classic villain. But even more sinister in this version.
Oh, yeah. He's described as this whirlwind of shadows and crimson lightning. And he manages to, completely overwhelm the knights, even with all their combined power. It really sets the stakes, shows just how dangerous he is.
And it's interesting, right, because his magic is so different from the knights. It's all dark and chaotic, whereas theirs is more elemental, more controlled.
It's like he represents the antithesis of everything Arthur and his knights stand for. So with Camelot on the brink of falling, they turn to Merlin for help.
Merlin.
Yeah.
A legendary wizard.
The one and only. But in this story, Merlin he's on his deathbed, and instead of offering some grand spell or a magical artifact, he whispers just one name. Nimue.
Nimue. Who's that?
Well, Arthur initially dismisses her as just a myth, the Lady of the Lake, a figure from old legends. But it seems like Merlin might have known something Arthur didn't.
It's like he's telling Arthur to look beyond the established order, to seek out these forgotten, maybe even forbidden sources of power.
Exactly. And so Arthur does the only thing he can think of. He takes Excalibur, his magical sword, and plunges it into the lake.
Talk about a leap of faith, right?
And from the depths of the lake, Nimue emerges. But she's not the ethereal maiden of the legends. She's described as this force of nature, her eyes burning with ancient light. And she wastes no time in challenging Arthur. She says, "You wield the power of unity, young king, but not the understanding." It's a pretty harsh assessment, don't you think?
It's like she's saying, you have the power, but you don't really know what it means, what it truly costs.
Mm.
And I think that's a theme that runs through a lot of stories, right?
Yeah.
The idea that true power comes not just from strength, but from wisdom and understanding.
Absolutely, and as if to prove her point, Mordred pulls a truly nasty move. He captures Guinevere, Arthur's beloved queen, and ensnares her with his dark magic.
So that's low, even for Mordred.
Right, and it throws Arthur into this terrible dilemma. Does he sacrifice his personal happiness, his love for Guinevere, to save his kingdom and his people? It's a classic conflict, but it really hits hard in this story.
And it also shows how cunning Mordred is, right?
Mm.
He knows exactly where to strike Arthur, how to exploit his weaknesses.
And in this moment of despair, Nimue offers some cryptic advice. She says, "The ties that bind can also break, Arthur. That is the risk, the cost of true unity." It's a bit vague, but it feels like a key insight, Like she's trying to guide Arthur towards a deeper understanding of his own power.
Yeah, I think she's getting at the idea that that connection can be a source of both strength and vulnerability. Arthur's ability to unite his knights, to draw on their power, it also makes him vulnerable to attack, especially through those he cares about.
And so Arthur makes a heart-wrenching decision. He severs the magical connection he shares with Guinevere.
Whoa, that's a huge sacrifice.
And the results are, well, they're pretty intense. The story describes this surge of raw power coming from the land itself, but also infused with Guinevere's gentle touch. It's like their connection isn't entirely broken, but it's transformed into something else, something more primal.
And it changes Arthur, right? He's not just the mage king anymore. He's described as something wilder, brighter. It's like he's tapped into a deeper, more powerful part of himself.
And with this newfound power, Arthur confronts Mordred. And it's actually a pretty quick fight. Mordred is, well, he's just reduced to ash. It's almost anticlimactic after all that buildup.
But I think that's the point, right? Arthur's transformation, his sacrifice, it's so fundamental that it just completely overpowers Mordred. It's like the darkness just can't stand up to the light anymore.
Maybe. But the victory is bittersweet. Camelot is in ruins. Many of his knights are dead or scattered. And Arthur realizes that rebuilding will take more than just magic. It will require understanding, wisdom, a recognition of the fragility of those bonds that connect them all.
It's a powerful ending, right? It reminds us that true strength isn't just about power, but about compassion, empathy, the ability to build and maintain those connections that give our lives meaning.
Exactly. So, listeners, if you take away one thing from this flash fiction story, let it be this. True unity isn't just about shared power, but about the understanding and sacrifices that come with it. Now, ready for something completely different.
I'm in with it.
All right, let's dive into our second story, Moby Dick's Mystic Hunt. But forget the grizzled old captain, the peg leg, the whole call me Ishmael thing. In this version, Ahab is a vengeful, dark, magical girl, obsessed with hunting down Moby Dick across these enchanted seas.
Oh, yeah. The listener who sent this one in was really intrigued by that dark fantasy twist on the classic story and how it explores those themes of vengeance and transformation.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pretty radical departure, right?
Oh, absolutely. From the very first lines, you know this isn't your grandpa's Moby Dick. We hear the crew whispering about Ahab, calling her a witch, talking about the dark magic on the sea breeze and the ritualistic scrawls she makes in her cabin.
It sets a very different tone, doesn't it? There's this sense of unease, of something unnatural and dangerous lurking beneath the surface.
And that sense of unease just grows as we learn more about Ahab. The mark on her arm isn't just a scar, it's described as this grotesque thing made of, like, barnacles and bioluminescence, constantly shifting and pulsing. It's the physical manifestation of a pact she made, a piece of her soul traded for power and vengeance.
It's a pretty disturbing image, right? It shows the cost of her obsession, the price she's paid for her power, and it also raises questions about the nature of her pact. Who did she make this deal with, and what do they want in return?
We do get some answers to those questions. As it turns out, Moby Dick isn't just some random whale in this story. He's described as a demon in Leviathan flesh, a creature that destroyed Ahab's village and her coven of fellow magic users. And the sea witch who granted Ahab her power, she refers to Ahab as material for a fine villain. It's pretty chilling, right?
Yeah, it turns the whole story on its head. It's not just about Ahab's personal vendetta anymore. She's been manipulated, set on this path of vengeance by a powerful, malevolent entity. And it makes you wonder, is she really in control, or is she just a pawn in the larger game?
And her methods are just as dark and twisted as her motivations. She uses harpoons made from the bones of slain sea beasts, all enchanted with powerful magic. She brews these disgusting potions made from, like, kraken's blood and mermaid tears to keep her crew going. And she even uses illusions to try and lure Moby Dick into a trap.
It's a very different kind of whaling, right? It's not just about brute force anymore. It's about magic, manipulation, a willingness to do whatever it takes to achieve her goal.
And it's clear that her obsession is taking its toll. Starbuck, her first mate, he sees the monstrousness blooming within her, and he recognizes the unholy nature of their quest. The crew is terrified, and rightfully so.
Starbuck becomes the voice of reason, the moral compass in this dark and twisted tale. But he's also trapped, just like the rest of the crew. They're all caught in this downward spiral, pulled along by Ahab's obsession.
And then comes the final storm. But this isn't just some random act of nature. The story describes it as an extension of Ahab's own magic, these oily black tendrils lashing the Pequod, her incantations, her curses. It's like the storm is a reflection of her own inner turmoil, the magic consuming her from the inside out.
It's a fantastic image, right? It blurs the line between the natural and the supernatural, showing how Ahab's magic is warping reality itself. And it also shows the cost of her power, the drain on her soul.
And finally, they confront Moby Dick, this ivory specter, against the churning darkness. And Ahab is just consumed by madness, her laughter described as devoid of all sanity. The story describes the hunt as a lover's quarrel writ large in blood and tempest.
It's a really disturbing image, but it also captures the intensity of Ahab's obsession. It's like this twisted, unhealthy love-hate relationship with the whale.
And just when Ahab's harpoons find their mark, Starbuck intervenes. He disrupts her magic, not by attacking the whale directly, but by using a simple iron spike. It's a clever move, a reminder that even the most powerful magic can have unexpected weaknesses.
It's like he's using the mundane to fight the supernatural. And it works, at least to a certain extent.
But it's too late for Ahab. As her magic is disrupted, she lets out this shriek, not human, but something ancient and terrible, and then her body dissolves into this writhing black smoke, the sea witch's spirit claiming her completely.
It's a horrifying end, but it also feels inevitable, right? She's been so consumed by her quest for vengeance that she's lost herself completely.
But what's really unsettling is that Moby Dick survives. He swims away, bearing the scars of their battle, and observes the wreckage with this eerie intelligence before disappearing back into the depths. It's like he's more than just a whale, more than just a demon. There's a sense of mystery, of ancient power that lingers long after he's gone.
And it leaves you wondering, who was the real monster in this story? Was it Ahab, consumed by her vengeance? Or was it Moby Dick, this creature of immense power and unknowable motives?
And then there's Starbuck. He survives, too, adrift in the wreckage of the Pequod. And he comes to this horrifying realization. He says, I survived a monster, only to create one far more terrible. He's talking about Ahab, of course, and the role he played in her transformation. It's a really tragic ending, this ballad of the witch who hunted a whale that led only to ashes and despair.
It's a powerful reminder of the destructive nature of vengeance, how it can consume us, twist us into something we never intended to be.
So, as our Wizarding Probe concludes for this week, what have we uncovered from these two very different flash fiction stories? King Arthur and the Mages' Round Table showed us the power of unity, but also the sacrifices and understanding that true connection requires.
And Moby Dick's Mystic Hunt gave us a glimpse into the darkness of vengeance, the monstrous transformations it can unleash.
Both stories, in their own way, offer unique perspectives on power, sacrifice, and the enduring power of legends, especially when viewed through the lens of magic. So, listeners, we hope this wizarding probe has sparked your imagination, maybe even inspired you to explore these themes in your own writing or reading. What resonated with you most? What questions are still lingering in your mind?
We encourage you to revisit these stories, maybe even with a fresh perspective, considering the things we've discussed today. And who knows, you might even find yourself inspired to delve into other flash fiction stories that blend the familiar with the fantastical.
Exactly. Thanks again for sharing these amazing stories with you, son of a witch. And for all you listeners out there, keep those submissions coming. We love diving into these worlds you create. And for more of that magical action, don't forget to rate and follow you, son of a witch. Until next time, keep those wands charged and those imaginations firing.
And watch out for those sons of witches.
You never know where they might be lurking.